Welcome, everybody. I have a question for you tonight. Where do you go when you die? Where do you go when you die? Is there anyone that would like to find out? The problem with that is if you volunteer to die to go find out, you have a hard time coming back, right, to tell us. I remember one time I was standing in a graveyard with my grandmother, and I said, "Grandma, where do people go when they die?" And she says, "I don't know, but when I die, I'll come back and tell you." I'm still waiting. But actually, if she did come back, I might jump out the window. So what happens when we die? We go somewhere. How many have ever seen a dead person? What did you talk about? Not much, right? It's really true. If you look at a person who is dead or has just passed away, you really feel like something has left this person. Something has gone on. Actually, the words "passed away" are really good terminology, as opposed to "he's dead." He passed on. And that means his essence left this place called the body and went on to another realm or another place. So according to our teaching, we believe very firmly that you and I are not just physical beings. Although we know we have a body, we have a flesh body, and it's made of material. Actually, it's mostly water. We believe even though we do have a body, that's not all that we have. There's something more to man, something beyond material. Man has an essence, a spirit. I want you to look at this chart here. We have a body. Let's say this circle within this bigger circle represents our physical body. And our physical body is living in a physical world. Right now, our physical body is living and carrying out its activity in a physical world. And we relate to our physical world through 5 physical senses. Five physical senses. We can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can taste, we can touch. And through these faculties, we interpret the phenomena of the physical world. And we live our life in the physical world. But one thing we all know is our physical life is a temporary life. And at some point, for some of us sooner than others, then our physical body is going to stop working. Our physical body is going to cease to function. And if your physical body ceases to function, then gradually it begins to deteriorate and it decomposes, it goes back into the soil. Is this the end? Is the destiny of each individual to just decompose and go back into the soil? Something inside of us feels like, gee, I hope not. Gee, I hope that the goal of my life, my ultimate destination, is not just to be a decomposing body. And we feel something inside, don't we? Something in us that is seeking after eternal things. We seek after eternal love, for one thing. When you're in love, do you really want to think of when this love will be over? Do you feel that love should have a time limit to it? I'll love you for 10 years and then I won't love you anymore? Not at all. The nature of love is an eternal nature. So the very thing that we seek above all things in life in itself is an eternal feeling or an eternal desire, an eternal essence. This is why man feels that there's something more to life than just the temporary life in the material, or in the flesh. And very clearly the principle tells us that yes, there is. There is an eternal side to man. Let's look at this circle inside of this bigger circle. This is our spiritual side, our spirit. And our spirit is like a body. Maybe you wonder what your spirit looks like. You know what your spirit looks like? Casper the Friendly Ghost. No, your spirit doesn't look like Casper the Friendly Ghost. You won't be a spook. But your spirit body looks just like you. Now, some of you might be disappointed to hear that. Maybe you were hoping that when you go to heaven, your spirit body might look like Cary Grant or Robert Redford or someone like that. But no, your spirit body looks just like you. And that way, your friends and your family can recognize you. That's true. You'll look just like yourself. We have a spirit body, and our spirit body is dwelling in another realm called the spirit world. The spirit world. What is the spirit world? Have you ever been there? I think the only way to describe the spirit world is if you've ever had a very vivid dream. If you sometimes you'll have really a vivid dream of a beautiful place, and you just think of doing something or thinking of going somewhere, and you're there. You ever had that kind of dream? Being able to travel freely through this beautiful realm. If I were to describe the spirit world, the spiritual heaven, it would be like that. It's a realm of tremendous beauty, and it's a realm of heightened sensitivity. But the most important characteristic of heaven in the spiritual world is it's the realm of the parental heart, the experience of the true parental heart. That's the realm of the spirit world we want to go. And we call that realm the kingdom of heaven, or we could call it the place where God is dwelling. That's the parental realm, the parental area. You want to go to that place in the spiritual world, the place where God is dwelling. And that is the realm of heaven, the realm of spirit, where the most powerful feeling is the feeling of love. In this physical world, we breathe air, don't we? In heaven, in the highest place in the spiritual world, we breathe parental love, true love. And that sounds nice. But also heaven is a real place with real scenery and natural scenes, beautiful lakes and rivers and beautiful trees and dirt roads. One time Reverend Moon said, the kingdom of heaven is so beautiful you can't imagine. Your most vivid dream doesn't even come close to it. It's so beautiful. He said, in the kingdom of heaven, you can walk down any common dirt road. There's dirt roads in heaven? There's dirt roads in heaven? Sometimes our concept about what the spiritual world is like is maybe it's full of clouds and fog, and everybody wears white robes and just walks around and plays harps. How boring would that be, right? You can walk down any common dirt road in the kingdom of heaven and pick up any common pebble and be so captivated by its beauty that you can gaze at it for 1,000 years and never be bored. Can you imagine how beautiful that is? I don't think I better tell you more because you might want to die and go there. It's that kind of beautiful place. Can you imagine? There are people in heaven that are still picking up pebbles and looking at it. It's so beautiful, they haven't even gotten past the rocks yet. It's an amazing place if we can get to the realm where God is dwelling, the parental realm. The parental realm. So after our body passes away, then we want to dwell in the highest place in the spiritual world. And that's where God is dwelling. And God is a parent. God is a parent, a loving parent. So how do we get there? Well, there's only one way. We have to take on the same heart that God himself has. And that means in this world, while we're here, in the physical world, we have to develop this kind of heart. Your heart is like the guiding system of your spirit. The extent that your heart is developed will be the extent that you will reach that highest realm in heaven. How much has your heart developed? And what is the goal of our heart? It's to become a parent, but a special kind of parent, a true parent. How do we become a true parent? Does it mean we'll have a bunch of kids quick? Jesus said, don't just love your family. Don't just love your brethren, your kinfolks. Even the sinners can do that. So the real definition of the true parental heart is not just loving your family. That's not the secret. But it is having the same quality of heart that God himself has. Now, what kind of heart does God have? Who does God love? What does the Gospel of John tell us? For God so loved his own family. For God so loved just the people that did good things to him. For God so loved those people that benefited him. No, it said, for God so loved all the world, that he gave his Son, that whosoever shall believe in him shall have everlasting life. God so loved the world. And this is the definition of the true parent's heart, the one who loves the world. So it's not enough just to love your family. It's not enough just to love your nation. Just being a good patriot is not enough. Because you can be a good patriot from one country and the good patriot from the other country, and those two patriots will fight each other to the death. That doesn't make God happy. For God so loved the world. To be a patriot is not enough to get to where God is, to the true parental realm. We got to love the world. That means we got to love all people. Can you get where God's dwelling if you just love your own race? I love white people. Let me in, God. And I'll say to God, I just love white people, God. And God will stick his face out of the gate, and his face will be black. Or I'll say, God, I love all people except I can't stand Japanese. And then God will stick his face out and he'll be Japanese. For God so loved the world. And if we want to get in there where God is living, if we want to get to that beautiful place, then we got to love the world. Not just our own family, not just our own race, We've got to love the world, everybody, because everybody is the son and daughter of God. The same. The same. So we got to get busy, don't we, to get there. We've got to start loving all kinds of people. You got to start loving all nationalities and all different kinds of people. And Jesus said, especially that person that you hate. You got to change and love your enemy. If you want to get to that place, the true parental realm, you got to love your enemy. Now, in this talk, I've been talking a lot about this place in the spirit world, meaning there's other places. That's right, uh-oh. You're darn right, uh-oh. You don't want to go to the other places. There are bad places in the spirit world. Again, depending on what kind of heart you have. If you lived your whole life for yourself, and you never loved others, and you lived your whole life for yourself, you know where you're going to go? You're going to go to the world of self. The world of self, the realm of self. And you know who's there? You. And that's all. Nothing can respond to you. You know what it takes for something to respond? You have to be a loving person. You have to give first. Jesus said, think first of the kingdom of heaven, and everything will respond to you in beauty and in service. That's why in heaven, everything is so responsive. When you smile at a flower, the flower goes, thank you. It's beautiful. When you walk by an apple tree in the kingdom of heaven, the apple tree will tap you on the shoulder, please eat my apple. And that apple will really respond to you, and that means it'll be so delicious. You've never tasted an apple like that. But if you lived your life completely for yourself on earth, then you'll go to the realm of self. And nothing will respond to you. You'll be empty and lonely, in darkness, just wandering around. It'll be like wandering through the subway. Nothing will respond to you. Loneliness, unhappiness. It's solitary confinement, no joy in that realm. We don't want to go there. So the challenge is we got to change the direction of our life and make the goal of my life to becoming a true parent, someone who loves the world. If you got resentment to somebody, you better overcome it. Love that person. Forgive them. If you have some racial resentment to another race, if you don't like black people, if black people don't like white people, you better overcome and love each other. Because if we go into the next world with any resentment or hatred to anyone, then we can't get here. We can't get here. So really, this is God's desire for each person, that we really are one family of heart. And that in this life, while we're in the flesh, we really devote ourselves, make that the number one goal in my life, that by the end of my life, I'll be a true parent, not only to my family, not only to my community, or to my city, to my nation, but to the entire world. And if we live like that, then at the end of our life, we can look forward to the next world. And you won't fear death. You'll look forward to entering that beautiful world of heart. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Once again, the main points from the lecture, Heaven and Hell. First, heaven is the realm of true parental heart. Second, true parental love is unconditional, as exemplified by Christ. Third, true parental heart is the standard that qualifies us for heaven. And fourth, hell is the joyless realm of self-centeredness.
Welcome, everybody. How's everyone today? Good to see you back. Well, let me start by saying I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. First, the bad news. The bad news is we're all going to die. We're all going to die. We all have a terminal case of creeping death. One day we're going to die, right? We can't deny it. Now the good news is that if we want to, we can live. If we want to, we can live. In our life, we meet many people that some believe in God, some don't believe in God. We see many religions, we see many different concepts about God, and in general, in the world, we don't see a high degree of religious or world unity. A lot of debate and a lot of struggle. But there's one thing that we can all agree on, and that is, whether you believe in God or not, absolutely, the day is coming that you're going to die. Whether you believe in God or not, you're going to have that experience, right? Irregardless of what your belief is or what your theology is, someday that day is going to come. We're going to someday die. But what does that mean? It's something we don't really like to think about so much, do we? As a matter of fact, just to bring up this topic, I can almost hear people turning their TV sets. Oh, I don't want to hear this. I want to hear some good news. This sounds like bad news to me. I'm going to die. Oh, no. We're really afraid to confront the meaning of death. And we like to pretend that it's never going to happen to me, right? Or me, I'm going to live forever. Death, that's something that happens to those people in the newspaper. Well, it never really happens to me. It's not something that I'm going to ever have to confront. But in fact, the truth, the reality is, our day of death is approaching. Our day of death is approaching. And you know what? Every day, it gets a little closer. Now everybody's getting nervous. Every day it's getting closer. There's not one person here who is getting younger, are they? We all have a little meter over our head that is counting off the number of breaths that we have, the number of heartbeats we have left, how many days, how many months, how many minutes. And not one meter is going up. It's all going down. We're facing ultimately this day, and who knows when it could take place. This is another wrong concept that we have. Death, well, that's what happens to the old people. They die. That's unfortunate for those old people, but me, I'm a part of the young race. You know, and I'm always going to be young. But actually, reality is death comes unexpectedly. Death can come unexpectedly without any notice whatsoever. You can make your schedule, your daily schedule, make your plan, and all of a sudden, without any expectation, you may meet your moment of death. Death isn't something that you can predict or something that you can control. How many have ever had a brush with death? It really makes you serious, doesn't it? Usually people, when they have a brush with death, they realize two things. Actually, oh, I almost died. And the second thing, I'm alive. Hey, I'm a living person, and I'm alive. And I got to find out some reason for being alive. Why am I here in this world? Why do we live? Usually when we're confronted with the prospects of death, we get very serious about living, don't we? We get very serious about living. And all it takes is one brush of death to experience that. Actually, I read a newspaper story about an airliner that crashed. And just to show you how death can come unexpectedly. This airliner was taken off, and it got to a certain altitude, and the cargo door blew out. And all the controls were lost on the aircraft. And when the cargo door blew out, the back 3 rows just got sucked out the hole. And just like that, 3 rows of seats of people were flying through the air. Suddenly, they got faced with an undeniable reality. Folks, we are going to die. There was no doubt about it, was it? Can you imagine if you were in their position? 1 second before, you were reading Time magazine and waiting for your lunch. So maybe you're going to have Salisbury steak. You know how people are in airliners. They're so secure, and they just feel, oh, absolutely, my life is planned, and I'm going to get here, and that nothing's going to interfere with that. And all of a sudden, this person's flying through the air. And maybe he's got 1 minute left in his life before he hits the ground. Don't you know their priorities changed on the way down? Don't you think your priorities would change? What would become important to you as you journey down to the earth? Do you think finishing this article in Sports Illustrated would be a priority on your list? Oh, I got 30 seconds. Let me finish this article before I hit the ground. Very common experience. For every person that's born, someone is going to have to die, right? But you know what happens to those people? They become frantic. They begin to scream. When the prospects of death face them, then they become frantic. But you know, it isn't so much the fear of death, but it's the realization that I was alive and I didn't understand it. I was alive in my life and I didn't use it. I was alive in my life, and now I'm moving on to the next phase of life, and I'm not ready. We're not ready. We're not ready to die. We don't understand what is death. And because we don't understand what is death, we don't understand what is life. So God needs to teach us why he put us here. God needs to show us that why are we living in this physical world, in this physical body, this temporal world. It's a temporary world, isn't it? Maybe the average lifespan is something like 70 or 75 years now, but it's temporary. It's a temporary life. But why are we here in this temporary life? What is it that we're supposed to do? And what happens when you die? What is death? Is that all there is? Is that all there is to this experience that we call life? Just moving towards a final point where we don't exist anymore? Don't you think life would be a little bit meaningless if the conclusion or the goal of life would just be to die and it's all over? It would be meaningless. It would really be a meaningless life if that's all that we had to look forward to. So we need to try to understand why are we living in these physical bodies? Is this all man is? Just a physical body? Well, actually, the past weeks we've studied about this point, and we can see that very clearly you're not just a lump of flesh, but there is an eternal part to you. There is a spirit. True, we do have a body. Now, I'm not an artist, but let's just say this is your body. And your body is existing in a physical world, right? In a physical world. And this is a temporary world. This is a temporary world that we're living in. So what in the world could be the reason for being here? Our bodies, we have five physical senses. 5 physical senses. We all know what they are. But man is not just a physical being, but we also have a spirit. We have a spirit. And this spirit is dwelling in a spiritual world. A spirit world. We call this the invisible substantial world, the spiritual world, the next life. Why is this spirit world invisible? Is it because you can't see anything when you go there? Actually, it's not really invisible when you go there. The people that live in this spiritual world, they're not invisible to each other. It's a very real world, and this is the world of spirit. Now, let's go back to this physical life before we go to this spirit life, because this is where we are now. We're living in a physical world. We're living in a temporary realm. We're not going to be here very long. Some of us more than others, but we're not going to be in this state forever. So what could we compare this realm with? You know, we've all lived in another realm, another temporary realm, haven't we? We've all come from another temporary world. And what was that? Do you remember? Your mother's womb, right? Well, it's very comparable, actually. We were in this womb for 9 months. We're in this womb for 9 months. Why are you in the womb for 9 months? We could call this a world. And you're in there for the purpose of what? Developing, right? You have to develop. In your mother's womb, you develop a full and complete physical body. And then you reach a certain point, once you've developed inside your mother's womb, you don't need to stay in there, do you? There's no need to stay in your mother's womb. Then you move on to the next world. You move on to the physical world. Well, this physical world is, we could call it the second womb. This is not the final destination point, but this is merely the second womb. Let's write that. This is the first womb, and then the second womb. First womb, and then the second womb. So actually, we're living in a second womb, in this life on earth, this life in our physical being. But our womb is a little bit different this time. Our womb is, we could say it's like a portable unit. You have a portable unit, and that is your own physical body. So the purpose of the second womb is to grow your spirit. The purpose of this physical life is so that our spirit can grow and can develop. The first womb, we develop a physical body. And then in the second womb, we dedicate our life then to growing a complete spiritual body, to developing spiritually. As Genesis 1:28 tells us, God said that we should become fruitful. So we had to obtain a certain spiritual standard. And that is the purpose of physical life, or the second womb, is to achieve this spiritual standard. So, the same way, once we've achieved this spiritual standard, once we've developed fully spiritually, then do we need to stay in the second womb? No. People that try to cling on to their physical life, it's as foolish as if a baby tried to stay in the womb and didn't want to come out. Is there anything then unnatural about going into the next phase of life? Not at all. If being born is a joyful event, then the second birth, leaving the physical world and going into the spiritual world, should be even more joyous. Even more joyous. So actually, how unnatural it is that we mourn at funerals. It's really unnatural. It's not the original way that man was supposed to live, because this death, or actually second birth, is as normal as the first birth. But what do people say when someone passes away? We say, oh, it's a tragedy, right? I'm so sorry. It's so pitiful. Or when some famous person dies, they always say it's the worst thing that could ever happen. Well, what did they expect? Did they expect this person to live forever in the physical world? No. We have to understand that moving into the next realm, the spiritual world, is as normal and actually even more joyous than the first birth. So this is an incredibly different perspective, isn't it? So actually, we don't call death. We call it the second birth. The second birth. And this is where we enter the world of spirit. So our physical body is no longer needed once we accomplish our spiritual development on earth, and then our spirit moves into the spiritual world. And we live an eternal life in the realm of spirit. So we could say that this is the third womb. This is the final destination, life in the spirit. So our life on earth then has to be directed towards that goal, that I'm preparing myself, looking forward, in fact, to the next life. But that what we do on earth, and next week we'll talk about this development, this spiritual development, how we develop on earth spiritually. We'll talk about that next week. But our purpose in life in this physical world then is directed towards spiritual life. So we can really see how lost people are when they just live their life for physical enjoyment. When they live their life with the idea that the physical life is all there is and there's nothing more. And this is why people inherently don't feel ready to confront death, because we don't understand. So we're just beginning to understand it now. So next week we want to talk about then, well, how does the spirit grow? Why did God give us a spirit body and a physical body? Why did God give us both? And how do they relate together? And how is spiritual growth achieved in this world? So next week we'll study this point. Thank you very much.
The main points from Reverend McCarthy's lecture on the meaning of death are: first, life in the physical body is temporary. Second, spiritual growth is the purpose of earthly life. And third, the death of the physical body is birth into eternal life.
죽음을 인간을 환영해야 되겠나, 환영하지 말아야 되겠나?
What do you think then? Shall we welcome death or not?
자, 그 죽는 데는 말이야. 죽는 데는 뭐 때문에 죽을 것이냐 할 때 하나님의 참사랑을 위해서.
So we have to put the meaning even to death. For what should we die? We should die for the fulfillment of the love of God, for fulfilling the craving of love of God, or reaching out to God. Well, that is the method.
무한한 하나님 사랑의 활동권을 내가 동참하기 위해서 육신을 벗기 하나님의 사랑의 세계를 위해서 육신을 벗는다.
In a way, death, physical death, means that we are getting rid of our clumsy physical body, vehicle.
그러면 하나님 사랑 가운데서 태어났다 할 때는 그 하나님이 인간 세계를 볼 때는 말이야, 아이고 죽어도 되는 하나님 볼 때는 꼴꼴 웃겠나, 하나님이 하라
육신 가졌나?
인간 세계를 울고 하는 거 볼 때 하나님 볼 때 웃겠나, 어떡하나.
God, who enjoyed the total freedom in the universe, when looking down and looking at the children, men on earth, who are suffering from one event after another, crying and sad sometimes, emotionally disturbed and hurt with the little trivial things. What do you think? God looking down at children, what do you think? God feel very, what?
싸워줘라.
Awkward?
아이고. 아?
God feels very, God can laugh at it. Laugh at it. What do you think? Does he?
제한된 사랑권에서 무제한의 사랑권으로 들이받을 수 있는 기쁨을 받을 수 있는 것이 제2의 출생 죽음길을 통하는 그 순간이 아니겠느냐.
So another birth, the new birth, God intend to give to man. Unfortunately we call as death. But in the God scheme of creation, that is another birth, new birth. That is, get rid of the shackles of limitation of physical body, total freedom, total the leap and jump, total environment where we can getting into, so that we will not be restricted by anything. That's the status we're gaining through that second birth.
그렇다면 오늘 너 육신을 만나를 기뻐하는 나 제2의 무한 확대 세계의 사랑을 위해서 활동한 아들로 태어나는 그 시간을 기뻐하겠나 하나님이.
What do you think then? Then we say the day the children were born is the day of joy and should be remembered. And it ought to be remembered, it must be remembered. What about then the second birth, which is we commonly call death, but actually it's a total liberation. We're giving ourselves a new birth into a totally free universe, new universe, where we can enjoy total love freedom.
무한한 이 우주를 순식간에 만날 수 있어.
So, once we are given a total freedom, we can, we can exercise the dominion over entire universe without any restriction.
그 관심 있어?
Are you interested?
진짜 관심 있어?
Are you really interested?
관심 있어? 그러면 어떻게 해야 되냐면 하나님이 하지 말고 하라 하는 그런 법도를 지켜야만 그 가능하다. 내 마음대로 해서 가능하지 않다 하는 것은 이러지.
죽기 전에 말씀.
그럼.
But important thing, however, all right, everybody interested in such a freedom, total liberation, total joy, total love. In order to do that, we gotta do something before we die. Just a simple death would not bring such freedom, such joy. We got to obey God, His commandment, while we are here on earth.
그 하나님이 하지 말고 하라는 걸 할 수 있어?
So, are we ready to obey God? Are we ready to obey His commandment? His commandment to the letter, every iota, every dot. Shall we keep the principle and the commandment?
그럼 사람은 이중이 될 때 마음이 주체고 몸띠는 상대니 몸과 마음이 하나 되라. 예서야 왕.
All right. So now, the first law is that man is dual creature. One is spirit, one is body. Spirit man and the physical body, or mind and body, we call it commonly. And the mind is the subject, and the body is the object. And the object must obey the mind. That is the law. That is the principle. Are we interested in doing it?
그래서 사람은 3세계, 서생장은 복중, 물세계, 기산, 지상, 지구성 세계, 생계, 그 다음에는 천상, 공기세계.
지상이 하면 공기죠. 천상이.
여기 지상 물세계, 복중은 물시대, 그 다음에 100년 이 지상에 태어나서 100년 땅시대, 그 다음에 날아가는 공중시대. 3시대를 거쳐야 돼.
The man is designed by creation of God to live three distinct lives. One life is coming, even without you knowing, in the vegetation period, within the womb of the mother. When you are conceived, you live one life already, and one life within the water. You've been surrounded by the
자,
water, liquid.
그 복중에 있을 때는 아이고 이거 나가고 저 밖에서는 나가려고 하가 나 여기 붙어 있겠다.
So when you were there, inside the mother's womb, you were there, and would you feel very, very congested and very tightened up, and you feel that I just want to go out somewhere in the wider space, or would you stay within it? That particular baby, automatically, naturally want to stay within or want to get out.
요만한 구름으로 내가 빠져나가려고 하나 아이고 좋다 좋다.
The door or window that the baby should come out is very small. All right. When God telling the baby that you have to get out that door, would he say, "Oh no, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it"? He'll be scared, or he say, "Oh, no problem."
내가 있는 집이 다 파괴되고 말이야. 내가 살던 영양가치 모든 것 전부 다 깨들어가고 내 머리도 그저 늘어나야 되고 몸뚱이도 늘어나야 되고 그래도 좋아. 전부가 노화가 나 이상한.
So, in order to get out of that particular window or door to another world, it's going to be incredible revolution is taking place. The disorder, disarray. You have to break off your shackle, and incredible, the pressure should be added, and all kinds of pain is going to be observed. Then, when you recognize all that, any baby will say, I'm willing to do it. Or every baby will say, no, I don't want it. No, I'd rather stay here.
나기 전 시간까지 어머니가 죽겠다 힘으로 나는 시간까지 no 하다가
So actually, all the baby, the very moment the mother gave him a birth, or give her birth, that very moment, until that moment, no baby is willingly want to come out. They just don't want to stay. They just don't want to come out. They stay with this, and resisting, demonstrating, no, I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to be comfortable here. And until the mother gave a final push, then that reluctant that baby come out outside the wall and start to cry, very sad.
자, 그러면 한 세계를 왕창 가지고 한 세계를 숨을 좀
That, in a way, for baby, is equivalent to birth of death. I mean, the pain of death. It's almost like a dying. It's impossible thing is happening. And incredible, unimaginable things happening to the baby. It's
자, 배꼽에 탯줄 달린 그걸 다시 써야 되겠나? 잘라버려야 되겠나?
So, anyway, he was released from the mother's body, came out of mother's womb. There was, certain,
태.
rope, that connected to the mother that has been receiving certain element from the mother, certain energy from the mother. Then that is what he should continually keep and trying to receive the energy from it, or has to be cut off.
그 다음에 생명줄인데 하루 생명줄을 끌어버려! 그 생명줄 끌어버려!
So it's cut, and then the navel is being cut off, and his throat is disrupted. According to the baby, that is a lifeline. Well, it's been my supply. Where can I get the breakfast? Where? Lunch, Well, that's my supply line. Who cut my supply line? The baby was very unhappy.
그걸 볼 때 하나님이 울게 애기는 죽었다고 울지만은 울지만은 하나님 볼 때 웃겠나 울겠나?
What about? The baby was so sad. That moment is almost the pain of death. I'm so unhappy. Everybody cutting myself off. Even my lifeline cut off. My supply line is no more. So crying and crying. God looking down at crying baby. God would be smiling or sympathetic. Is it crying together with the baby or very much smiling? What is it?
마찬가지야. 우리 공기세가 세상에서 지금 밭들 가지고 멍기게 여기 붙어가지고 딱 태워가지고 여기서 안아가서 빨아먹던 영체가 이게 다 늙어서 차버리고 나가는데 아이고 안 죽겠다 할 때 그 가을 때 하나님 볼 때 그 스마일 나갔나 아이고 동정하네 이놈의 갓나야 이놈의 자식아.
Well, it is exactly the same, the transformation from this world to another world, it's exactly the same process. You know, we think this is all in life. We just stick to this planet, this planet in New York. Right? We don't stay here. But actually, you know, time comes, God sees another planet, another birth, that a new world is waiting. God will push us into that world. But we're so reluctant. We say, no. Don't touch me. Don't push me there.
배를 태워내가지고는 어머니 아버지가 치고가지고 사랑의 대상이 될 수 있는 것이 육신 생활이라면 영원한 무한한 하나님이 우리 아버지라면 영적 아버지라면 영적 아버지와 상대할 수 있는 사람으로 태어나는 것이 이것은 원리원칙적인 결론이다.
It is a natural conclusion. Ultimately, all men and women are supposed to be consummated to the level of freedom that God, our Father, can enjoy. That is freedom of spirit body. This clumsy
태가 태어나가지고 어머니 아버지 친구가 될 수 있는 지상적이고 어머니 아버지와 사랑을 같이 할 수 있는 지상적이와 마찬가지로 영적 무한 세계를 통할 수 있는 하나님 부모 앞에서 태어날 수 있는 그런 상대적인 다름을 차지하지 않고는 도저히 하나님의 아들이 될 수 없다는 얘기예요.
The creation is already designed so that parents and children are enjoying life together. In order to enjoy their life together, the baby inside the mother's womb come out in the same fashion as parents, so that we can talk to daddy, talk to mommy, and become one family and enjoy life together. By the same token, ultimately, we are given to another birth where we can join with our eternal Father, which is God, and live with Him forever in the same form, same fashion. That is most logical. That has been from the very first day creation has been planned.
그렇게 했을 때 여기서 전부 다 하나님 법칙 따라서 태아의 정상적인 알게 되는 것 마찬가지로 여기서 잘 짜야 되겠나 함부로 짜야 되겠나.
So what do you think? So we are almost our physical life here on earth, at the planet, one life here on the planet, is like compared to life in the mother's womb. So that baby should be careful himself or herself in the mother's womb, very, very careful. By the same token, we should live good life and healthy life inside of God. All the entire period we are remaining on earth. Shall we live healthy? Shall we live very carefully and following certain rules and the laws and the principles? Yes or no?
Yes. 물건을 권충도 말고 말이야. 권충도 말고 나무 연면에는 나무 시설도 날아낼 줄 알고 새색도 날아낼 수 있는데 사람은 날아낼 줄 몰라.
Look at this. When you see the insect, the egg can become a worm. The worm become the little butterfly or flying insect. It becomes a flying insect and it's flying around all over the world. All over the nature, right? When you look at this insect flying, you see, can't you ever thought about even insect can fly? Why can we not fly? Why can I not fly?
댄들러 그 단법은 말이야. 그 자연 날게 돼 있다. 날아가게 돼 있다.
Even a plant like a dandelion. Dandelion. It's ultimately, it's brought them into even what one sees, they're parachuted, and they're going all over the nation, all over.
그런데 새도 날고 곤충도 날고 식물도 날고 돼. 아니 만물이 여기서 사람도 날아.
What about? Even a plant can fly, bird can fly, insect can fly. What about me? The supreme creature, supposedly supreme creature. I'm at the image of God, but I'm the only one who cannot fly. How ridiculous that notion is.
하나님 보고 가만히 가서 하나님 다난데 난 왜 날개 못해서 하나님이요. 그 항영시잖아.
The very moment you recognize that fact, I'm sure every one of you can be able to, can be in a position to protest to God, saying that, Mr. God, what happened, my dad? You made everybody the capability of flying. Why not me? Why you created me without wings? Why I'm so clumsy? Why have to always walk?
그렇기 때문에 야야야 가만히 있거라. 너 저 몇십 년만 지내면 그게 될 텐데 기다려. 그럴 땐 그래? 그럼 그래. 그건
God answers very simple. Your will. Your will. And all you have to do is just wait few decades. You'll fly better than any creature under the sun. Than any, faster than the Concorde.
그럼 뭐래 그때 서 가서 마케팅으로 훈련하는 거야. 어머니 아버지하고 좋아야 하나님 거를 좋아하고 신랑하고 좋아야 저 나라에 가가지고 하나님 아버지를 좋아하고 다 훈련장이 지상세계다.
But God is saying, but you got something to do down there. Don't waste your time. You have to practice. You have to go to a workshop of life. Do, rehearse the things I'm asking you to do. By doing so, the day comes, you shall be totally enjoying the freedom. What that's the God is trying to say to us.